had a 25-year connection with. I had a small farmlet here. One of the most beautiful little towns in Western Australia, a town called Balingup, situated about 240 k's south of Perth. It's 2.5-hour drive. It's a town that in the 60s lost its local council, like many of us. It got forced into council amalgamation. It was a fruit and dairy town. It had a cheese factory that closed down in 1977. And then many of the dairy farmers converted to beef the year before beef prices crashed. The result being that many of them went broke. Many of them very quickly sold out to the forestry department, who saw the value of the landscapes here to kind of like develop for their pine and their blue gums. But, you know, in that 1970s, we had all those wonderful new settlers come in, alternative people. We had a major, kind of like a major commune established in the town, and many young people brought their gifts, their talents, and particularly their cultural and art skills to this community. And from that kind of like 1970s period onwards, a Progress Association formed, and this town reinvented itself. And today it's just one of the most attractive towns, built upon its arts, its crafts, its special events, its wineries, its galleries. Boy, it's a town that has truly reinvented itself and become one of those lifestyle destination towns that many people want to go to. Today, the town has about 600 people, about 1,500 in the district. And at the heart of it are a couple of community builders, Wendy and Roz. And I just want to introduce both of them now. I want you to come on. Tell us the story from your perspective of this amazing town called Balingup, and particularly how you've used the arts, culture, and above all, special events to make this a very special town.
Lovely. Okay, so this is Wendy speaking, and this is my friend Roz. And Roz is the person responsible for the costumes 9 times out of 10, and we make things like the horses, and everything is done locally. Okay. So I just launch into the presentation now. I'm taking it. Yeah, I'm going to anyway. What the hell? Okay, take it and start sharing. Yes. Okay. Okay, sure. Hang on a minute. I think so. Balingup is about 3 hours south of Perth, what we call in the centre of the universe here. It's beautiful countryside, and at the height of its prosperity in 1959, had a population of around 1,400 people. Then Britain entered the common market, and there was no market for our produce. So, as Peter mentioned, the farms were unviable, they were abandoned. So the town dropped to around about 200 people. And even now, we're still a very small town. We have tripled in size, but we are very small. Then we had all these people come in the 1980s. We had a lot of alternative lifestylers come in, the Universal Brotherhood, the Steiner School. We've still got our very own, very popular Buddhist retreat, operational Buddhist retreat. Organic and biodynamic farmers moved in, including Roz. And of course, we're famous for our magic mushroomers. And this photo here is, you can see there's a magic mushroom hidden behind the trees. And this was just before he could hide behind the nearest tree. I took that. And of course, with them, we also get the accompanying policeman. So then in 1981, the Forestry Department started buying up the land. And this was very unpopular locally, mainly because of the fire hazard. And Balingup Progress Association was formed. So this is our first major win. This is Golden Valley Tree Park. This was established, and today it's the biggest community arboretum in West Australia. It's got an Australian collection and an overseas collection, and it's just a fantastic place to visit. This land is owned by the state government, but it's run by Balingup volunteers. When the Balingup Roads Board was disbanded in 1970, the town was absorbed into the Shire of Donnybrook Balingup. We lost a lot of our freedom and didn't gain much financial benefit, so we had to become resourceful to keep the town alive. One of the early businesses in town was the Tinderbox. That started off just selling a few herbs and oils, but it's now developed into a substantial retail and online business. The cheese factory is also a big attraction. It converted the original cheese factory into a high-end antique and craft shop and still remains. And Balingup Tavern, the photo on the right, the original pub actually burned down many years ago, and then it was the site was bought by a group of Balingup locals. But then last year, guess what? We had another fire. So we're hoping that it will reopen again soon. In 1982, the Tennis and Bowls clubs raised $80,000, and bearing in mind it was a very small population then, to build a recreation centre. And this is still run by a committee of volunteers. So to give you an example, the Shire pays over $250,000 to run the Donnybrook Recreation Centre, and it gives about $10,000 a year for Balingup to run its recreation centre. So that's another example of Balingup self-sufficiency and, to be honest, dogged determination. Then in 1989, a community plan was developed, and the community decided it wanted a community centre. So we relocated a building from the next town. Then we also wanted a workspace, so moved it from the forestry village in the next town, same deal. We really wanted a cheap rental for help people start a small business, but that didn't work out, so it's now actually used as a Carnival workspace. And these facilities are great because they're made available completely free to community groups. So during the community planning process, there was a lot of focus on developing viable farming, and this led to the first small farm field day in 1991. It started with a $4,000 loan from the Progress Association and focuses on small holdings, how to be sustainable and live off the land, looking at alternative crops, suitability of animals, and earth-friendly farming practices. It started off small and local, but it now very quickly built up to attracting around about 10,000 people a year. So the field days actually returned hundreds of thousands of dollars of profits into the community, and these funds are distributed to local community groups through a trust fund. So the medieval carnival first one was held in 1997, and it was funded entirely by local legend, Benson, sitting next to me. It started off with just a few people in a small street parade, and it was just for locals. Now, the carnival features jousting, archery, music. It's a 2-day event, and we get around about 12,000 people, depending on the very cold August weather. There's a high proportion of young people and children who come along because everybody gets to dress up, and you can join the grand procession, and the Burning of the Dragon at Night free event is very popular. In 2000, for the first time, we charge for entry, and now all the profits go to education programs through the school and adult workshops. And as an example, last year, the Carnival donated $30,000 to Balingup Primary School. We've got a wardrobe of hundreds of costumes, all made by local people. So other events have evolved using seed funding from the field day. And for example, the photo on the left is Telling Tales, and that focuses on storytelling for children. We also have Art Happens. It gives local artisans a chance to sell their work. And another of Roz's creations on the right is the Giant Santas, and those are put out to welcome people at Christmas. Those are real people sitting in front, by the way. It's a great place to live, and guess what? Nobody wants to leave. So in 2002, the Vintage Hometown for Life project was established, so older residents can remain in community for life. 5 cottages have been built so far, funded and managed entirely by the community. There's no Shire support for this, and this is the only example of this model in West Australia. Vintage has to meet the same strict regulations set for large age residential villages, so this is an amazing effort by a bunch of volunteers. To build the first cottages, one local went guarantor for the housing loan, and this is an example of what it takes to make a community. And as you can see, there's one cottage empty at the moment if you want to come and live in Balingup. It's a very good deal. Tourism based on events and beautiful scenery is proving a great success. We've now got over 150 beds in the area, ranging from backpacker to 5-star accommodation. Last year, Balingup Heights was inducted into the WA Tourism Hall of Fame. And Balingup Primary School has also won many awards. Last year, the community worked with the school and was rewarded with the Junior Fire Brigade project, and they won the State Resilience Award. And Balingup won the Can Do Community Award in 2003. But unbelievably, in 2018, we achieved the unthinkable. A full-time pharmacy opened in town. The community demonstrated such strong support, it led to a doctor opening a surgery last year. So we've been rewarded, and this is just such a huge achievement for the community. So how do we do it? Well, we're not led by one or two leaders, but by many. We've got a well-educated population who know how to work around the system and get the best results. Having said this, the Field Day and Carnival are entirely self-funded and have never relied on government grants. We focus on high standards and people having a good time, and this ultimately results in people through the gates. Groups often start under the umbrella of Progress Association, who holds a very comprehensive community insurance that covers activities of all committees, subcommittees acting under their auspices. We believe this is another one-off in WA, and it encourages small events to give it a go. Other communities are reluctant to put on small events because they fear public liability claims. WA has so far escaped the worst of COVID. The initial lockdown caused only one business to close because locals took the concept of buy local very seriously. We quickly developed a list of volunteers happy to help vulnerable people, but guess what? Nobody in Balingup considered themselves vulnerable, including the 80-odd-year-olds. So these volunteers were never called on, but it was nice to know they were there. Post-COVID, well, sorry, Roz, we've got our secret weapon. We'd like to have a more tailored approach to lockdown with more community consultation and less top-down policing. We want to have a say in how we socialise in lockdown. And in fact, it's interesting that over East, they've been talking about this and it's very needed. We hope people continue working from home because this would attract more young families from the city to move to Balingup. We'd like the state government to reduce red tape. For example, during COVID, we'd like the farmers to be given training now so that they can slaughter and sell meat and also sell unpasteurised milk, and that they are allowed to do it legally. We'd like public liability to be looked at so that it actually allows communities to be self-sufficient and reliant and to actually take risks. And finally, we want them to take away the need for community groups to prepare food in commercial kitchens. And we say, bring back CWA home cooking. And future projects? Well, Roz and I would both like to see training in artisan skills with cottage industries. And we're currently investigating installing a community battery so the town has a self-sufficient renewable energy supply. And then, and only then, we can both retire.